I think it's about between good and evil because there's really no reason to be against it, you know?
Yeah.
It's it's a matter of people's, civil rights, and it's if you're not supporting that, then you're really against it because why wouldn't you support it? Hey everyone, welcome back to the Brotherhood Project. Today it is myself, Austin Traxel, with co-host Philip Salmon. We're coming to you live from two different places, one going on vacation and one about to come home from vacation. Phil, where are you joining us from today?
Well, I'm joining on this podcast in I want to say the wet city of Orlando, Florida. So
Mm,
I'm still really, really far away, and I don't think it's been a while since I've been this far from home,
yeah.
and this south in a long time.
So from what I remember, is this your first vacation?
All right, so like to bring context to that situation and how I explain that it is my first vacation was
Yeah.
because I don't really like I don't really consider my experiences that I've had as a very young child as a vacation because I don't get the full experience of a vacation, and so
Hmm.
it's it is my first vacation. Like my first, like I get to
Yeah.
come here and relax and enjoy myself and kind of get away from a lot of things. So yeah, it is my first vacation as a grown adult.
And how was it? Any fun stories?
I mean, I just think overall it's been fun to be myself and just be comfortable saying things that come off the top of my head that are funny and just be witty and just be goofy all the time, but understanding that it is a time to be restful. And I think one of the coolest things that I've had is just being able to it's kind of like a missions trip or like a spiritual retreat, being able to kind of like settle down and get back into the word. And because
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody last night about this, I think when we're in quarantine and we want to be quiet and have that quiet time with the Lord, like it's really hard when all you're getting is just quiet time away from people. And so it sounds such an odd thing, but like because I was on a trip with people in a different setting, it kind of broke that mold so that
Hmm.
I was able to kind of have that, not renewal in the spirit, but just to have that experience and really get a fulfilling word out of reading my Bible or reading a little bit of out of a book, whatever it may be. So no, it's been a good thing, but that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned in regards to personal experience.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you finally got to experience what we've all been enjoying for
Yeah, it's certainly something that I will do again, but I don't know if how soon. So but where are you going? Because I think I'm pretty confused on where you're going because I've heard rumors, but
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
it's not exactly a vacation, but I mean, in the summer we just kind of travel everywhere
Hmm.
between our families. We're just going back up to Ohio, to Cleveland. I'm filming a wedding tomorrow, and then I'm going to another wedding on Friday. So in between that time, we're just gonna hang out with family and do work up there. So not really a vacation, but then in 2 weeks we'll go on a vacation to a little lake
Gotcha.
house. Because we were gonna go to the beach and then that didn't work out because of the pandemic. And yeah, ended up figuring out we're going to a lake house later in the month. But this week we're going up to Ohio to just see family.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see your experience in a couple of weeks, just being able because you know you're used to being at home
Yeah.
and you kind of gotten that routine after a year and a half of being working at home, and now you have the quarantine where you're staying at home permanently and how that's changed, and it did affect you to a good extent. And now like you kind of have it's kind of like a restart into society in some fashion as
Yeah.
things have started to reopen. So like everything is much more open here. It's such a different setting when you go from state to state and see how each state has responded to the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. So I think it's such an interesting experience to
Yeah.
go in a different state.
A lot of states seem like, I mean, because the past few weekends I have been working at church at
Hmm.
Southeast and like
Yeah.
doing live streaming, going to people's houses and covering watch parties and everything. So I do, it was a little weird at first, like going back into people's houses and like seeing them host parties of like, 10 people to come watch the service together and like shaking my first hand after the pandemic was definitely kind of jarring, but
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. I clean my hands and everything. So um yeah, I'm excited to be around people again. For the most part it feels like everything's kind of normal now, except you can't work out with your friends really at the gym, you can't play
Hmm.
basketball, still can't go to a lot of work stuff that I usually do. I mean, this wedding tomorrow will be interesting. I'm interested. It's my first corona wedding and I have 15 this year, so I'm interested to see um how that goes. But obviously we'd be missing out if we didn't discuss what was currently happening in the news. And obviously in this last week while you've been on vacation, there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on in the news. Um, Basically all starting, not all starting from the George Floyd murder. But it really was like a tipping point in what led to a bunch
Hmm.
of protests, and from all across every single state in many countries around the world were out protesting the racial inequality and police um, brutality. And while we don't have a ton to really like say about it, we just want everyone to know that we're available and we're here for anyone who needs anything from us that we can do to help cure the system of racial inequality and be there for our friends of color. And whatever we can do, we're here. We're not experts on it, obviously. Two white guys,
Hmm.
one
Yeah.
from Kentucky, one from Ohio. We're not experts, but we're available. We're willing to listen, willing to act, and do what you need for our friends and our family. All the brothers and sisters out there of color who need it. If we have anything that we can offer of value, where you can have it, whatever you need. We're here to help. But yeah, I'm curious to see what your perspective is on all this, because you've been on vacation and you've been in quiet time, and it's like you wake up and it's like the guy who was in the woods and came back and there was a pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting way to look at it. Just because, for me, I think George Floyd was murdered before I had gone on the trip, and there wasn't as much as I don't know what happened, what sparked it, but
Hmm.
I think I think I got a call from my parents and said, "Hey, like, are you still in Louisville? Be careful." And they're just like, there's rioting,
Yeah.
there's looting. And I was like, oh wow, like I didn't know what was going on exactly, the full extent. And I think the interesting thing to me, and this is kind of my entire this is where I'm at with this kind of situation, is I kind of just ignored it, and I'm being honest, and I think that's something that was something that I now see as unique
Yeah.
to who I am and my position and my privilege, and that's something that I didn't really know until I think I read a quote from, because I've been keeping up a lot with ESPN because of like the NBA reopening,
Yeah.
and because of all the protests, there was a lot of like great quotes from a lot of great NBA legends. I think Kareem had a really good quote that I really liked, um, but there was just some interesting things that I saw some from like NFL players and a lot of players, and I think someone in particular, and I can't, I don't know who it was, but they said something along the lines of, if you're able to ignore what's going on right now, you have a level of privilege. Like if you're able to acknowledge that this is going on in this field over here
Hmm.
and be able to separate yourself, like you have a privilege to do that. And I didn't really realize that until a couple of days where I was like, Like I'm here in Florida, just like enjoying, like I've been able to separate myself. And
Yeah.
I think that's been a really hard thing to kind of swallow. Um, because I really don't know what to do. I really don't. And it's such a new discussion to have for me, but it's a discussion that I want to have.
Yeah.
Um, it's not something that I will ever experience. And I think that's something that's really unique. I think I read Alvin Kamara spoke yesterday or something. He made a quote about how you will never get the full, like basically not verbatim, but you will never experience this inequality unless you were a black man. And
Yeah.
as a white man, I'm just like, like it's almost kind of frustrating, like because I want to know, but I have to learn to take a step back, because I feel like as a guy and as someone who wants to like figure things out and like by like tinkering,
Yeah.
I it's really it's a bit of a learning curve. And so as I'm in this processing, it's like processing the situation and in how to respond, I think for me it's just really coming to people and just having discussions and seeing how my language can better, how my thought process can change and just be more educated in situations where I don't have a race, like a racist tendency. And I think that's something that is really hard to swallow when there's something that's going on that you aren't cognizant of.
Yeah.
You're not conscious of what's going on, and to really bring that into the light is very important and very exciting to me, because it means that I'm changing. And I want to make sure I'm having these conversations with like yourself, like you on this platform, but also, people of color, so that they can check me and say like, hey man, like that's not cool. And then so I can use that as feedback moving forward. And I think that's something that I'm excited for,
Yeah.
because I'm a outgoing guy. I like getting to know people, discussing topics, and loving on
Mhm.
people. And I want to make sure that even as a teacher, this is my biggest point out of it all, is like as a teacher, I want to make sure I'm inclusive to all people,
Right.
and to make sure that I'm addressing situations and matters in a way that respects and honors people in their diversity is very, very important to me. And I know I'm not good at it, and that's something that's like you want to just be able to like flip a switch and be like, I did this, okay, so I'm good.
Yeah.
But I believe it is an ongoing process, as a lot of things are. But I think right now in our culture and our society, this is a situation that we need to have an extra we need to be extra careful in that, not to get in trouble, but to say, hey, like this is a matter that needs to be dealt with now, so what can I do to be proactive moving forward, so that I can be an ally in this case, in this issue.
Yeah. And a lot of people we're gonna have to realize that like we can't necessarily take the lead on it either.
Yeah,
Like, cause we don't really know exactly what we're doing. What we can do to fix it, because we're not the ones who experience it directly.
yeah, yeah. It's a really heartbreaking thing to see, and I think this week, like seeing more of just kind of really police brutality was really the hardest thing to watch. And it's really easy to get mad at that, but
Mhm.
I loved seeing a lot of things that I saw. Like, I don't know if you saw the video from Flint, Michigan, with some of the police officers just really encouraging and loving on the black
Mhm.
community, and just saying like, hey, like we're here for you and we want to support you, and we're your ally. And I think I don't know what it is, but I don't want to get into a lot of the what is and what isn't. Um, but I think an interesting thing someone brought up, and this is not so much that I'd be just curious to hear your thoughts. And you may have already seen this, but a lot of people think that this is a a matter between the kingdom of evil and the king, in God's kingdom. And I think that's such an interesting thing to think about. And this is a discussion, and I'm not a historian where I can go back to 1800s and look at all these issues, or look back in the 1960s with Martin Luther King and say this is what it was. I'm not a
Mhm.
historian, but there's just a lot of interesting things that, because of real things coming to light now, I'm able to really get a better understanding of what the mission was of Martin Luther King
Mm-hmm.
Jr., as a pastor, and what led him into this desire of understanding, like, in God's eye, we're all equal. So how can we make sure we check our racial tendencies at the door? And so I don't know. It's such a, I think for me being external processor, it's very interesting to have a platform like this, because
Yeah,
a lot of these things I'm just processing, off the top, and in how I'm experiencing them as they go. But it's certainly something that it's about time. We need to be able to have these discussions, and you know, it is what it is. Um,
definitely. Yeah, it is a battle. I think it's a battle between good and evil because there's really no reason to be against it, you know?
yeah.
It's it's a matter of people's, civil rights, and it's if you're not supporting that, then you're really against it because why wouldn't you support it? And there's a lot of people who have this history of like their this pride, and no matter what, there's going to be this I don't know why there's going to be this group of people who are just going to support like the president no matter what he does. No matter
Hmm.
what comes out, they're just going to like support him over any blue thing because they're so it's just I mean we've all seen that. I think it's a tweet from KB. It's like when your politics have become your idol when you're choosing political sides and not between good and evil and what you know
Hmm.
your faith is telling you to do. Love everyone. You know, like, and then a lot of people are just picking sides. They're like, well, we want to support the police. Well, like you don't have to pick a side to support. You know, just support the people of color and what's happening to them, and you don't have to be against the police to do that.
Hmm.
So there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who are just like, no, we're picking this side, picking that side. Like, you don't have to just pick the side of good and be there for your neighbor and love your brother.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine what it would be like, it being having been told to gear up and, you know, go against whatever protest is going on in your city.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I don't know what's going on in the heart of a lot of those individuals, and it's really tough to see that. I can't really in that situation, but it's such a tough thing to think about and ponder, because there's not. It is. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, as we're discussing, it really is just this battle of good and evil, and you gotta come to light, and really learn to love people. But I think this is a big lesson, and I think for me, just observing it and you know seeing that is really uplifting to in my eyes. And so I'm really looking forward to see how things are moving forward, and in regards to equality, and just how this changes
Yeah.
the climate moving forward.
It's just saying, it's like it's so crazy how different our time is now compared to the 60s. Because we have social media, like everything
Hmm.
gets captured. No one gets away with
Yeah.
literally anything. So like we have this historical like content of everything that's happening. This police officer doing this in Louisville, this Minneapolis and New York, and all this stuff's happening. We have like people recording it all the time, which like is so like imagine how much stuff happened in the 60s that no one ever heard about.
Hmm.
Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it's
yeah.
good. Sorry, go ahead.
I just say it's also different because like it's very similar, but also like back then it was like the North versus the South, or like white people versus black people versus the government. But like now it's kind of like it really does feel like it's like good versus evil slash confused.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is a tough. It's a very intriguing setting. The climate right now is very, very. I think it's thinning, because I think
Yeah.
adversaries are kind of diminishing. But I think something that is. I think the interesting thing about it to me is the ability of God to bring a lot of good out of this, a
Hmm.
lot of unity, and it's been such an interesting unification of such a vast majority of people. It was I think someone said like it's this bad, like this is not against, like you said, it's not against, whites versus blacks, as it was maybe in the 60s, but now it is race versus racists, like just
Yeah.
um and it's such an interesting thing to discuss. And you know one of the toughest things is arsonists, people who are looting and seeking to pull away from the message is really hard, because they do a pretty darn good job at it seems like. But it
Mhm.
feels like a lot of the things that are going on and being portrayed right now is it's not pulling away from it tremendously enough where the message isn't getting across. And I think that's something that's really good, you know
Yeah.
and so I think there's a lot of movement moving forward. And I think God is good through it all, and He knows what He's doing. Sometimes we never understand. I think this is in all personal lives. God moves in many ways, in such a distinct way where we don't understand. And moving forward in these cases, we really have to learn to trust. If you're a Christian follower or a Christ follower, you really need to. I'd really advise people just to show faith. And when God calls you to do something, whether that is to speak out or to love somebody who is in harm, really show that, display
Yeah.
that, show your faith in that. And I think that's something that's really important moving forward in this situation.
Definitely. Just be a good brother. I think a great thing you can do if you don't know what to do is just support the people that are in your inner circle
Hmm.
who are people of color. Um, support the people that influence you, the creators, the musicians, the photographers, like everyone that you are influenced by that you like look up to, support them too. And just start with your inner circle and then do what you can. See if you see something, do something, say something. Don't let it go silent. There's just a lot of things you can do. If financially you want to do anything, there's a lot of great causes out there that you can give to that could definitely use some financial assistance. But yeah, obviously we're not professionals of social work or civil rights or anything, but we just choose to love our brothers and our sisters and our mamas and our papas. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so breaking a little bit off of that, did you see the NBA's coming back?
Yeah, man. I'm kind of, because at first I knew that they were gonna do it in Orlando, and I'm like, I'm in Orlando right now,
I
so I was
know, you
really
should
hoping
just
they would
stay.
just start it. I just want to stay and let them start it, but then I'd have to wait like 2 months, and I don't think I would. It's very humid in here, and I'm wearing this lobster shirt because I'm
Yeah,
sunburnt to a crisp. I'm actually not. We've
you
we've
are
been inside,
lobster.
but I am wearing a lobster shirt because I got roasted pretty bad this week. But that's okay. I'm used to it. But no, I'm excited for the NBA. I think it's going to be a great into the season. I'm really, really intrigued to see the players and their
Yeah,
response to it. I saw, I forgot who said it, um, but I was thinking about it. Someone needs to, they need to be mic'd up, and I was like, they need to be mic'd up. If the
yeah.
players are mic'd up,
Or
like,
just I think Deshaun Jackson said that about the NFL, right?
yeah.
Or something.
I think someone did. I think they said that, but I think he was talking about the NBA, and I think that's something that's
Oh
really
yeah,
important. Um, just because, like, I hope it. Maybe even Steph Curry said it too, because like it's just gonna add another level of like trash talking that I'm like, I
yeah.
want to see that part of the game,
Oh
because like
yeah.
we all know it's a part of the game,
Especially with no
and like,
fans.
yeah, like with there being no fans, like, and like to have mics to show the trash talking, like we all know that, like we've all played pickup, and there's always been some sort of trash talk. So I don't know. I think it'd be really cool to see something like that. But I'm really excited. I'm hoping that the Mavericks can bump their seed a little higher than seventh seed right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. There was 9 teams invited from the East, right?
Yeah,
And
nine
then
teams
there
from
was
the East
like
and 13 from the West.
13 from the West. They're like, this is a little bit more interesting on this side.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's like it's very interesting because the East, it's just or I think it's the Magic and the Wizard in the 8th and the ninth seed. And so having those two fight for the 8th and ninth is really just it's just between those two, to get into,
Yeah.
So right now, and I mean, and I think the Nets are like maybe 1.5 in front of the Mavericks, or I mean the Magic. So it's a bit of an interesting play in there, but like there's so many teams on the West to just get into the 8th seed for the playoffs, and so
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I Part of me thinks that they did it just because they want to get Zion in there, but at the same
Yeah.
time, you got Portland in there too, and I think Portland's going to be dangerous because they're getting their big guys back.
True. I really like it because it's a great way for LeBron to just get another ring.
Yeah.
I think there's a great chance. Hopefully, I think that's who I'm gonna pull for all
Mm-hmm.
all year, whatever this is gonna be, all month. Um, it's really interesting because it's like these teams were in playoff contention. They were, past midseason form. They were like in their prime season form. They were making a deep playoff run. They were just beginning that, and then they took like 2 months off. And then
Yeah.
in July, they're going to be saying, all right, turn it back on. We're back. I mean, they are going to get like a month to recover and train a little bit to get back to that form. But how crazy is that like mentality? Like you
Mm.
just flip it off and like you go home and play Call of Duty for a month or a month and a half. Because a lot of them do. Like a lot of them just either live on their own or like with some of them are have families and stuff. But like a lot of them are just like college dudes just sitting at home
Yeah.
playing COD, and then they go back and like now they have to go play for a championship again.
Yeah, they have to compete at the highest level in the NBA. And I think that's such an interesting thing about their mentality. And I was thinking about this, we just finished I mean, maybe a couple weeks from now, The Last Dance, and like seeing that
Mhm.
and watching that and seeing the mentality um, in the mindset of Michael Jordan, but also seeing that in Kobe Bryant and his experiences, and looking forward to hopefully having a document in him. But like, you know, I have much more of a respect for those players now. And just to put like to me, I love the mentality of those guys, but like to think about LeBron James, and I know this is like, oh, who's the GOAT? But like LeBron James went to 9 back-to-back
NBA
NBA
finals.
finals,
Yeah.
and for majority of those, he was the top player on that team, and
Yeah.
he
Sometimes
made
even both teams,
yeah, like
even they're
he
lost.
lost 6, of those, but like in the grand scheme of it, to me, like I'm not saying he is the GOAT, but he certainly is our GOAT in that case in regards to our generation. But just his mentality to be like, I'm gonna haul butt and be the best player that I can be.
Yeah.
Just to me, moving in this quarantine season, like he's like on it. Like he just turned a
Oh
switch and
yeah.
was like, because he grew his beard out, and then he was just like, I'm in. And so he's like, he's ready to roll. He
Yeah.
is.
He didn't stop.
It would have been funny if he and Anthony Davis grew their beards out, so they just were
The
two burly men.
cavemen team.
Caveman.
Yeah.
No, I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah. And after watching that documentary, I do think Jordan was like pretty spectacular, but he was definitely not a good teammate.
No,
I mean,
no,
you could
he's a
you could
unique teammate.
yeah, you could argue a lot of the stuff that he did helped his team and pushed them, but he was still kind of a jerk.
Yeah, I would say this. Like, I think what's so spectacular about his story is he was able to do that while being the best player in the league. And what's interesting about that is like if he was that way that he was with his teammates and he wasn't able to show it on the court, he wouldn't be like he would be kicked off. I personally or
Yeah.
traded, and I think that's such an interesting thing because you see that now more than ever. There's so like again we said this earlier, like with social media, there's so many avenues of seeing people in a different light, but
Hmm.
you can get in trouble in so many ways, and so I think it's such an interesting tell on people and these players to be able to shift their mindset into something that is entirely separate from
Yeah.
this. I don't know. It's just that, especially seeing that in the Last Dance, but like it's an entirely different breed of people. Their mindsets, their mentality moving forward, and I'm excited to see. I think there's going to be a little bit of rust, being
Yeah.
on the court, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. But I mean, those TV ratings are going to be nuts.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Everyone's just, I mean, NASCAR and golf are great, but they're not really fixing that for a lot of people.
That is for sure. Yeah.
I'm interested to see what they do because obviously now we would be wrapping up the season or it would be over. And they would be in their off season, but now they're playing during their off season. So I'm interested to see what's going to change about next year and how long is this domino effect going to go.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing that's the question that everybody's been asking in this quarantine season is like, when's the next wave? How is this going to affect other things moving forward? And like I think the MLB is having a really hard time revamping, which is really tough, for those fans. But it's good to see how proactive NBA, because NBA knows that they've been growing and developing, and so they're really they were cognizant of being of the fans and saying we've wanted it. Like that's the thing, is like we were in a really good season and we were looking forward to the playoffs. And so I think them as an organization saying like, hey, we want to bring this back for the fans, even though it is a bit of a financial decision. I think it's important with just being able to be aware of fans and saying like, hey, we want to bring this to you. And I think that's something that's really good. And I know we're excited for it and I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully I'll have some time to go actually watch some games. But I'm rooting for the Mavericks, but I think, LeBron has a really good shot at getting another.
Yeah, I hope so.
Another championship, which would be hype.
We'll have to have a watch party because I'll be in Louisville a lot during all this.
Yeah, I'm about it.
We'll get a little NBA Corona watch party, whatever they are calling this quarter season wrap up, season finale. That's what they should call it.
Yeah. Be interesting if they went straight into the new season.
But that's what I was curious about.
I think they'll just cut it out.
How much are they going to affect the next season and the season after that and the season after that?
I think they'll just cut the next season off by like 20 games or something like that, and just have it where it goes into the same where it usually ends, but just have it where they start a little later.
Maybe they just do like 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. It really is.
That's why they get paid to make those decisions, and we just get paid to watch.
Yeah.
Except
hey, I'll watch it, man.
We don't get paid.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, man. So is there anything else you wanted to add for today? I know today's kind of a shorter episode. Everyone's kind of on the move. Did you have anything else that you want to add, or should we take the train home?
Well, I probably should cut it because someone over here is mowing their grass.
Awesome. So, perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing to kind of wrap it up. But I think, while it may be a short episode, I think hopefully it shows a little bit of volume of our character and just understanding where we're at and allow people to hopefully respond. And we really want to hear back from people. I think that's something that we want to learn to press a little bit more and hear back from our audience, but just hear how we can better ourselves in our discussion and our conversations, not just in things that are going on right now, but things moving forward and in life. And so, but no, I think it's a good place to wrap her up.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and taking part in the conversation. As Phil said, join us on Facebook and give us your questions, give us your answers, give us whatever you want to take part in the conversation. But until then, we will see you guys every Monday as usual. Check us out and have a good week. Stay safe. I get so excited to share with the people, so ready to get the vibe in. I will never ever forget where I came from. To get to the top, gotta start from the bottom.